Hi students, in this video we will be reviewing lesson 2-5, equations of parallel and perpendicular lines. So for these two now, it says find the slope of the line that passes through each set of coordinates. So because we're looking for the slope, we need to be able to recall the formula of the slope, m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So the very first step that we have to do here is we need to label the points. In problem A, we have points B and R. B being my first point, and R being my second point. So what we do here is we're going to come back and substitute these values into our formula. Y2 is 2, minus Y1 is 4, X2 is 0, minus X1 is negative 4. So 2 minus 4 would give us negative 2. And notice 0 minus a negative 4, this would turn into a positive, and that would give me 4. You must remember that you need to simplify all of the ratios. So here, to simplify this ratio, I can divide top and bottom by 2, and we get negative 1/2. Okay, let's do the same thing for problem B. Label the points x1, y1, x2, y2. Subtract the y's, 4 minus a negative 9, and 2 minus a negative 2. 4 minus a negative 9 is the same thing as 4 plus 9, which would give me 13. And 2 minus a negative 2, add those, it's 2 plus 2, which would give us 4. Since we can't simplify further this ratio, we're just going to leave it like that, and that's our answer. For the last problem, we have m equals, subtract the y's, but before you got to label, don't forget. Subtract the y's, 7 minus 4. And negative 5 minus a negative 5. 7 minus 4 is 3. And negative 5 minus a negative 5 turns into a positive, which would give us 0. Remember, we said we cannot divide by 0. But it is okay to have a 0 on the top. So for these ones, since 0 is at the bottom, right, we know we can divide by 0, so this is going to be undefined. And it makes perfect sense, because if you were to plot these points on the graph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we have 4, let's just pretend this is 4, and this is 7. When you plot the points, A is negative 5, 4, that's going to be A, and then M is going to be negative 5, 7. So when you connect those points, this is a vertical line, and remember Mr. Slope, uphill line is positive, downhill line is negative, vertical line is undefined, and horizontal line is 0. So keep that in mind, okay? So here, the answer would just be undefined. All right, so the objective for today, students will be able to find the slope of parallel and perpendicular lines. And what you're learning today is something that you already covered in Algebra 1. We're going to be reviewing equations of lines. Most linear equations are written in slope-intercept form and standard form. Okay, so what is the slope-intercept form? The slope-intercept form is going to be the formula for the equation of a line using its slope and its y-intercept. So the slope is going to be represented by a letter m, and it's the number, right? It's a coefficient of x. So here we're going to put slope, and then b is going to be our constant number, okay? And b is going to be our y-intercept. So if you look at this one, y equals 5x plus 2, our slope is going to be the coefficient of x, which is going to be 5. Not 5x, it's just 5. It's just a coefficient of x. And our b, our y-intercept, is going to be 2. Okay? So this is our favorite form, because it's very easy for us to graph it, to identify the slope and then identify the y-intercept. But sometimes you're going to be giving the equation of the line in standard form, okay? So in standard form, it's going to be ax plus 2y plus by equals c. So because standard form does not give you the slope m, you must be able to convert them from standard form to slope-intercept form. Okay, so looking at this one, if we want to convert, this is x plus 2y equals 2. If we want this standard form to look like this one, like slope-intercept form, we need to be able to solve for y. So in order for me to solve for y, the first step I gotta do is cancel x term. So to cancel the x term, I'm going to be subtracting x on both sides. That's going to cancel it on the left so that I can have y by itself. And notice that negative x plus 2, I'm just going to list them horizontally because these are not alike terms and we cannot combine them. Again, we are solving for y. And now what we have to do here is we have to divide by 2. That's the second step. Divide or cancel coefficient of y. And remember, we cancel terms or numbers, right, by applying the inverse operation. Remember, what you do to one side, you must do it to the other. So this is going to be y equals negative 1/2 of x plus 1, because 2 divided by 2 is 1. Now we want to identify our slope. We want to identify our slope is going to be negative 1/2. And if we want to identify our y-intercept, that's going to be 1, positive 1. Okay, so all that you're doing right now is being able to understand how to change it from standard form to slope-intercept form. And again, this is not something new. This is something that you learned in Algebra 1. All right, let's go ahead and start with the guided practice. Given the graph, write the equation in slope-intercept form. So we need to be able to recall that the slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. So if I need to write the equation of this line in problem 1, I need to be able to identify my slope and I need to be able to identify my y-intercept. I know that my y-intercept is that point in which that line crosses the y-axis. So my y-intercept here is going to be negative 3. And then for my slope, since it's in a graph, I'm just going to do the rise over run. But don't forget, Mr. Slope tells us that when we have an uphill line, the slope is going to be positive. Downhill line, negative, undefined, and 0. Always remember Mr. Slope. Okay, so for this one, I have 2 nice points on the graph. So I need to be able to determine the slope by going... by counting the units that I'm rising. So I'm rising 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm running 1, 2. And always remember that you must simplify. So 4 divided by 2 is 2. That's the slope. Once you have the slope and the y-intercept, all you have to do is write it down in slope-intercept form. Y equals positive 2x minus 3. Okay, so now for the next one, I'm going to do the same thing. I need to be able to find my slope and I need to be able to find my y-intercept. Once again, my y-intercept is that point where the line crosses the y-axis, which in this case is going to be negative 2. And to find my slope, I do rise over run, which is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, right? I find 2 nice points on the line, so I'm rising 4, and I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But since I'm running to the left, it's going to be negative. So rising 4, running negative 5. And remember, Mr. Slope, okay, this is a downhill line, so it's going to be a negative slope. Don't forget that. And all that you do here is write your equation in slope-intercept form. The slope first, negative 4/5 of x minus 2. And that's your answer. Okay, so now looking at the next one. For this one, it says write the equation in slope-intercept form. Right now, this equation is in standard form. This is in standard form. If we want to write it in slope-intercept form, we need to solve for y. First thing that you do is cancel the x term. So minus x. So this will cancel the x terms, and we get y equals negative x plus 6.
Mom, I'm done.
Right? So now we're going to be identifying our slope, which is a coefficient of x. And notice there's just a negative, but you know that there's an imaginary 1 there. So my slope is negative 1. And my y-intercept here will be 6. Okay? Now your turn, right? So looking at this one, write the equation in slope-intercept form. And once again, we're given the equation of this line in standard form. So we need to cancel the x term. So this would give me 2y. We cannot combine negative 5 and negative 2, so list them horizontally. And then finally cancel the coefficient. So y equals negative 5 halves of x minus 1. Notice my slope is a coefficient of x, negative 5 halves, and my y-intercept is my constant, which is negative 1. Okay. Now, why are we doing this, right? Why are we changing equations of lines from form to form? The reason is because when we have it in standard form, it's not easy for us to determine the slope of the line. So we need to be able to change it from standard to slope-intercept form so that we're able to identify the slope and the y-intercept, okay? And that is because the objective for today is to be able to find the slope of parallel and perpendicular lines, regardless of the type of form that you're given, okay? So remember, parallel lines and perpendicular lines, this is something that we learned the last class. So parallel lines, I just want to remind you, are going to have the same slope. I'm going to give you an example, 2x plus 5, 2x minus 3. They have the same slope, so these lines are going to be parallel because they have the same steepness. Now, for perpendicular lines, they're going to be having opposite reciprocal slopes. So y equals negative 3/4 of x plus 10, and y equals 4/3 of x plus 2. So all we care about is that slope. And remember, opposite reciprocals is nothing else but flip the fraction and change sign. Okay? So here we have negative 3/4. We flip the fraction, we get 4/3. Since one was negative, the other one must be positive. And so when you recognize these type of lines, you should know that these are going to be perpendicular lines. All right, let's go ahead and do some practice problems. It says determine whether the lines are parallel or perpendicular or neither. Looking at this one, I notice that my slope in the first one is a coefficient of x, which is 5. And the y-intercept is 2. In the next one, the slope of y equals 5x minus 1 is 5 because that's a coefficient of x. And my y-intercept is a constant number, negative 1. So in this one, we notice that because they have the same slope, these lines will be parallel. Now looking at the next one, the slope of the first equation, y equals negative 3/2 of x plus 4, is negative 3/2. The y-intercept is 4. The second equation, y equals 2/3 of x minus 7. The slope is 2/3. The y-intercept is negative 7. So what do you notice here? The slopes are opposite reciprocals. So what do we say? When they have opposite reciprocal slopes, then the lines will be perpendicular. All we care about is that slope. So for your independent practice today, you're going to be asked to graph to give me the equation of two graphs, two lines that are graphed. And then they're also asking you to find the slope of the line perpendicular to the given line. And then they're asking you to find the slope of the line parallel to the given line. So the steps are in the practice. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do one more problem with you guys here. It says find the slope of the line perpendicular to each given line. So if I'm looking for the slope of the line perpendicular to this one, the first step that I have to do here is change equation from standard to slope intercept form. Okay, so I noticed that 3x plus y equals -4, that is in standard form. And if I'm looking for the slope, I'm not able to identify the slope. So the very first step that I need to do is I need to change from standard to slope intercept form by solving for y. So remember, when you solve for y, it's two simple steps. Cancel the x term. This would give me y equals, I cannot combine -3x minus 4, so list them horizontally. And then the second step will be to cancel the coefficient of y, but right now the coefficient is 1, so I am already done. So notice that here your slope is -3. So that's the second step. Identify the slope of given line. So my slope is -3. Now, because the question is asking you to find the slope of a line perpendicular to this one, then we need to take the opposite reciprocal. Remember, the upside down t is going to be perpendicular, so the slope of a line perpendicular to this one will be positive 1/3. Remember, there's not a fraction there. If there's not a, if the number -3 is not as a fraction, you need to be able to change it into a fraction so you can flip that fraction. So you just put an over 1. Okay, so the answer here would just be this one. The slope of a line perpendicular to the line given will be 1/3. So my step 3 here would just be to, if they're asking me for perpendicular slope, take the opposite reciprocal. But if they ask me for parallel slope, then I'm gonna keep the same. Okay, so looking at this one, it says find the slope of the line parallel to the given line. I'm gonna follow the exactly same steps. Step 1, change equation from standard to slope intercept form. I notice this is in standard. I gotta change it by solving for y. Cancel the x term. Y equals, can combine -2x minus 4, so list them horizontally. And then the next step will be to cancel the coefficient of y, but it's already a 1, so I'm done. So the slope here would just be -2. I have finished with my first step. Second step says identify the slope of the given line. Well, the slope of this line is a -2. Third step, are they asking you for perpendicular or parallel slope? So they're asking me for parallel slope, so I gotta keep it the same slope. Keep the same slope. So parallel, the line parallel to this given line will have the slope of -2. The exactly same. So follow these 3 simple steps. They're already there on your form as well. And good luck with your form. I will be looking at the results. And again, this is not something new, guys. This is something that you learned when you were in Algebra 1. We're just simply reviewing, okay? Thank you for watching.